Right there.
That's yours? Okay. What can I say? Theirs is big one.
It's for you. You're welcome.
Oh, you're cooking. Oh, you sent me something.
No, I don't.
Okay.
You did it, I'm minding my own business. Where'd you go?
I'll save it for later.
Rod, have you got the declaration with you? Did you just have it here? Because I can't read it here and I couldn't find it. You can have it back. I just couldn't. Just so I can read it. And I'll slide it back. And then I'll slide it around and you can pick it up from here.
All rise.
Hey, Jen. Thank you. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody, to our regular meeting of council for November 14th. As I normally do, I warn everyone at the outset that we're live streaming, and it will be recorded, and it will be in our archives. Those of you way at the back don't have to worry because the camera doesn't catch the back of your heads, but it's in the first handful of seats that and also, too, during the participation period or at any time during the meeting, if anyone wishes to address us, they will need to come to the front and use the microphone so the live streaming can capture your voice. And you will be asked to put your name and where you live on the sheet. So we have the spelling of your name and your community. Okay. So I call the meeting to order. We have an amended agenda. Perhaps we should get a motion to approve the amended agenda, please. Moved and seconded. Discussion about the amended agenda. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. We have a number of minutes to receive. The first one is October 24th, the minutes of council, please, and to approve.
Second.
Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. The next one is a special council meeting that was also held on that day.
Move approval.
Second.
Move second. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. My remarks, I have a number of remarks tonight, and the first one is just to, I typically don't do this, talk about proclamations that I've made or are about to make. But this is something a little special, so I thought I'd bring it to everyone's attention. As mayor, I have the power to make proclamations and proclaiming Cancer Awareness Week or those kinds of things. But this is to do with a very special first anniversary, and that'll be November 22nd, which I will be proclaiming this Noaith Day. To recognize that this is the first year, and you may recall on that day in a wonderful ceremony at the high school, the welcome pole was dedicated. We had First Nations, both from the Lekwungen, from the Songhees, and the Esquimalt First Nations were there, and certainly it marked an occasion of great revitalization and collaboration amongst the Oak Bay community and the Greater Victoria School Board and those two First Nations. So it was a huge step forward for us on so many levels, and I think it shows our commitment to reconciliation and working with our First Nation partners. And there's a number of whereases where I talk about whereas it provides an important recognition of the history, culture and traditions of the Songhees and the Esquimalt and promotes understanding, and whereas it upholds a lasting legacy of collaboration within our community and with our First Nations neighbors. And finally, the Snowiath in the language of Lekwungen language means spreading of good energy, which is integrated into our daily lives to build and maintain a strong community and recognition of our past, present, and future. And I know we have two of the people here tonight who worked very hard on the issues surrounding that, Rod Sims and Jan Mears, and there were many, many, many volunteers to make this happen. And there was a very proud moment for our community, and continues to be a symbol of that pride. So November 22nd, Snowiath Day, I hereby proclaim it so. So thank you very much. And I know coming out of that is the Snowiath Legacy Fund, which is being worked on, which I think initially was going to be focused on Oak Bay High School as a high school recipient would get a scholarship, but it's now, as the name implies, spreading good energy. That energy is spreading throughout the CRD with the assistance of our volunteers and the school board. So a great moment. And we had the 99% satisfaction rating in our citizen survey. And it's moments like this that contribute to that feeling of community that we all have, that we all care about and respect each other. And I remember the day last year, it was very moving with Marianne, the chief's wife from the Esquimalt, giving her blessing and the songs and talking about opening our hearts, which we did that day and we continue to do. So thank you very much. So, I borrowed the proclamation from Mr. Sims, so I'm going to have to slide it back to him. Thank you very much. A number of other remarks. The first is we were very honored to have the Canadian Medical Health Association BC branch here this morning to essentially launch what will be a 3-day conference in Victoria, and also to speak to their manifesto for mental health throughout British Columbia, the 5-step plan. And they asked if they could use our chambers, which we were happy to accommodate. And I signed as a resident of Oak Bay and someone whose family has been touched by addiction. I signed that manifesto. Sorry. And so I encourage everyone to go to the conference in the end of the month. And I know the mayors are going to try to get together for a special event to show support. So thank you very much. On another note, so this is the conference. I should say this is before stage 4, and it's in a conference on rethinking mental health and addiction. On another note, you may recall we've spoken before here in these chambers about trying to encourage the provincial government to change their policy about grants in lieu for the University of Victoria. The University of Victoria pays us $56,000 a year instead of taxes, and that represents, in our estimation, only about 20% of what the services we actually provide. The federal government has a program, similar grants in lieu, where they actually try to fairly deal with the local governments that they have their facilities in. So fairly, for instance, means Esquimalt probably next year will get some $12 million as a result of having the Navy base in their backyard. And we also met with the minister to discuss that. Well, I regret to inform you that on the 25th of October, we got a letter from the minister, Andrew Wilkinson, very disappointing, essentially just said, well, thanks, but no thanks. And he will not reconsider, he will not revise it. And the importance of reviewing this, of course, comes from the fact that there's a single pot that hasn't been changed in years, and it keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller as more communities have universities established in their community. So it's one pie, and it's sliced thinner and thinner and thinner. And I think we were up closer to 100,000 when I first came on council many years ago. And I think somebody pointed out, I think it might have been one of our councillors here, that there's a house up in the uplands that pays as many taxes for one house as the university does for their hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of assessed value. So very disappointing that Mr. Wilkinson at least didn't take it under advisement and look for ways to accommodate us. And it's not just us, it's every community that has a university in its community. We welcome the university. We just wish to be treated fairly in the way the federal government treats their local governments. Next, AVICC, the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Communities, has a call for resolutions, and I know we put one forward last year, and just to advise council that if anyone wishes to do the same, we should be considering that. The deadline is in February, but sometimes it takes quite a while to kind of marshal it, so just there's a heads up there. And where are we? Too much paper and not enough work. All right, so the next one is Remembrance Day. I attended three ceremonies. The Glen Lyon Norfolk ceremony, very moving ceremony, and a local veteran who lives in Oak Bay was recognized there. I also attended the Willow School. Again, and that was really a lovely focus on peace and hope. And they have their flag ceremony where they bring the flags of all countries, not every single country in the world, but all the major countries. Again, as a show that we are together. And then, of course, I wish to pay particular attention to or recognition for the ceremony that we had at our cenotaph in Oak Bay, a particularly big one this year. I think it's in fact the biggest turnout, I think, in my 20 years of attending there. And I want to congratulate Councillor Ney and her committee and for taking it in a more inclusive way. This was the first time that we recognized First Nations, first time that First Nations laid a wreath at the cenotaph. We had a different approach to the order of the ceremony. We had young people involved, and we had a very moving presentation by a veteran who had been to Afghanistan, as I can recall that, Tatiana Delininski. You know, from all the feedback I got from everybody, it really was appreciated, the work that you've done, Councillor Ney, and the results. And I know every year we're going to get better moving forward and being more inclusive, so thank you very much. Now, finally, and this is something very special. This is something I got today. This is from the school district archivist, School District 61. I learned about this and a project that they'd had ongoing for some time. It is connected to Remembrance Day. Their archivist, Judy Stevenson, a retired principal, has been working for quite some years now in tracing the Second World War fallen heroes back to their schools. And all of the fallen heroes from our schools are in this book in Oak Bay. Margaret Jenkins, although they're just outside, but many kids who went there, Monterey, Willows, and Oak Bay High. And there is a section where she's meticulously researched this, where she sets out where the person was born, where they lived. There's a Willow student who lived at 1931 Bowker, and he was 21 when he died. And what he did, and a little bit of the history, if she was able to find it. There were two brothers who went to Oak Bay High School, the Coventry boys. One was 27 and the other was 30. They'd also gone to Monterey as well as Oak Bay High School. Really, as you go through this here, you learn about their histories. There was one gentleman which stood out. They all stand out for different reasons. Mr. McConaughey, who'd gone to Oak Bay High, and he left a son 3 and another son 6 behind. And he was killed. He was a flying officer, and he was also had been a member of the UBC rugby team. So he lived at 2661 Estevan. Monterey, particularly touching young man, 26, a fellow named Douglas Butte Stewart, who lived in the 1200 block St. Patrick's, and he never saw his daughter. Terrible. A young fellow at Oak Bay High School, 26 years old, he was a pilot. He was killed in a flying accident overseas, 1542, Yale. And there was another fellow who just down the street, 1557 Yale, a Maurice Beatham, who was also killed in action and is taking part in the D-Day offensive. So this is very cherished. I will present it to the archivist here, and it'll be the source of research and remembrances. And it was very moving when the principal of Willows talked about this. So she had her section of it, and she told the boys and girls that were there about these are kids who sat in the same chairs you sit in. These are kids who played in the same schoolyard that you did, who walked home on the same streets that you did, and they gave their life for you and your freedom. And I think it really was something that hit home. And there was a special plaque that they have now done over at Willows in recognition of the 13, we call them boys and girls who were there, who later died, mostly in their young 20s in the Second World War. So it's really something special. And I want to thank not only Judy Stevenson, who put this together, but the Associate Superintendent, Greg Kitchen, who made this possible for us to receive. I picked it up from his office today. So. Lots there. So, thank you very much. Now, thank you. We next move to public participation. This is a time when we have 20 minutes set aside for people to come to the microphone to talk about issues touching on Oak Bay. We ask them to state their name, what community they're from, and also make sure it's a list there. And I start a timer as soon as I welcome the people, the person, formally. So it's a 3-minute, and we'll start at 16 minutes after. Thank you. Anyone wish to come forward? I ask a second time. Anyone wish to come forward? And Mr. Sim, welcome. Oh, no, I haven't started the time yet. Okay, so you're Rod Sim, Oak Bay. Okay.
Mayor Cost, or Mayor.
Whoa, that was close.
Mayor Jensen.
We were talking about remembrance there, and see if you can remember. Okay, so now I'm going to welcome you, Rod, and start the 3-minute timer.
Councilors Braithwaite, Kirby, Ney, and Zelko. Thank you for allowing me a minute and a half to speak. The reason that I'm here tonight is that I wanted to bring you news from Snow Wyeth Legacy Scholarship. Snow Wyeth Legacy Scholarship was created because of the generosity and the vision of a small group of donors and supporters. The opportunity to create the Snow Wyeth Legacy Scholarship arose because of the success of the Snow Wyeth Welcome Poll. Over the next year, the Oak Bay Rotary Foundation would like to grow the Snow Wyeth Legacy Scholarship. It would like to increase the endowment. It would like to increase the amount of the annual scholarship payment, and it would like to export the scholarship from beyond the border of Oak Bay into Greater Victoria. On the 11th of October, the superintendent of the school district attended a meeting in Oak Bay and spoke very encouragingly about that export from Oak Bay to Greater Victoria, from little old Bay, Oak Bay out to the great big Victoria. I'm here because I wanted to encourage you to support that, to get the community to get behind this export and to help people in Greater Victoria to understand the benefit of spreading good energy. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I don't see any objection to that export, not that we have export controls here, so to speak. So we wish you well, and if you need a letter from myself supporting that, I'd be more than happy to do that. So just let us know when and to whom, kind of thing. Okay, anybody else? I asked for a third time. All right, thank you. Come forward, please.
Good evening.
Name?
Vivian Smith. I'm
Vivian.
a member of Oak Bay.
Welcome, Ms. Smith, and
Thank you.
start your 3 minutes. Thank you.
I grew up here. Had the good fortune of growing up here. A wonderful community to grow up in. Monterey Elementary and Oak Bay High. Still many people that I grew up with that are on my street for that matter, which is really interesting. Gotta love that. So I've been doing some work on my house, and I've had some interesting experiences going forward with that. You're going to have to pardon me because I have to get my glasses on. I turned 50 this year, so that's... I came from a community, this community, and again, privilege. Was raised on teamwork, supportive environments, working together. Been a member of health labor over the years, private sector, government employee, all kinds of things. And an out lesbian. I was the first person to be married in North America, 1993. Very proud to say that. And I've come across issues in my life. And I've come across issues in Oak Bay. I'm sad to say that. Very emotional response to that, very emotional. This teamwork thing that I expected, I understood that I could go to my municipality, even though many people do things in our municipality and don't necessarily get permits. Matter of fact, many don't. But when I moved here, I bought a house that was red circled. Went to get a permit to get this connection for drainage runoff and stuff that they told me that I didn't have. So, and that I needed to pay $3,400 for this connection, and had to dig out from my side to it, and the city municipality would dig their side. So went and paid those fees and waited a month or so for that to happen. And it happened, and then they discovered, unfortunately, that I was already connected. Never did get my $3,400 back. Had a conflict at the time with a gentleman called Rene Buser, which there were several people that were present during this conflict. Part of it was $3,400, as you can imagine. The municipality omitted to test my house for whether or not I was connected in the first place. That's really unfortunate. And again, they're already there digging, and when they discover this, and no refund. Rene Buser, I approached him on several occasions. This went on for hours, actually, as they went back and forth, because there was also a depth issue. And asked him what was going on, how do we proceed, what's going to happen with the connection, those kinds of things that are pretty obvious for a homeowner. He turned around and walked away from me without answering me on 2 occasions, with a number of people present.
Okay. Your 3 minutes is up, unfortunately.
Sadly enough.
Did you want to finish on a last sentence? But we have the
Yep,
essence of
I
what
was
your
slow.
situation is. Thank you.
Yeah, that's quite all right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I know some of the issues that Ms. Smith referred to kind of obliquely have been looked at by our staff and also by an independent assessor. And my understanding is that at least any of these past incidences, whatever they were, have been looked at, and no action was required on them. If there's anything, and I encourage you, Ms. Smith, to if there's anything new, concerns that you have, you're certainly free to put them in writing to our Chief Administrative Officer, Ms. Koning. Oh, if the new ones, okay, that's fine. So it'll be dealt with in due course. And thank you very much. Anybody else? All right, thank you very much. We're going to now move on to the first one is a request for financial assistance, Threshold Housing Society. We have both a note from our the Deputy Director of Corporate Services, as well as the application itself. And I do see the Mr. Muldoon is here from the Executive Director from the Threshold Society. If there's, we do have your letter. You're free to come forward to see if, let's see if there's any questions. The request is for, let me just have a look here. I had it up on one, now I can't find it on the screen. There it is, $4,223, which represents the taxes that you expect to pay. Is that right, Mr.?
That's right.
Okay. So just before we go down that road, I'm wondering, Ms. Carter, we put aside an amount every year in our grants budget that are unspecified, or they're kind of free ions in the chemical sense. So how much is left in that particular budget that we have at our disposal has not been earmarked?
Thank you, Your Worship. There is approximately $9,000 left in the 2016 budget.
All right. Now let's, if you want to just make a very brief statement, because you were here before.
That's right.
In terms of the taxes, and we heard quite a bit from you and also the chair of the board.
That's right.
So when we have your application, maybe we can start to see if there's any questions of Mr. Muldoon. No? Okay, so was that a no? Okay. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
I'm just wondering, is that the total amount of the taxes for the year, or is that for the portion of the year that you have to pay?
You mean in terms of the amount that we're asking for?
Yes.
That's the amount that would go directly to Oak Bay. That's not the total amount we pay. The total amount we pay is in the neighborhood of $7,500, I believe.
7,500, but it's only because it's a portion of the year. Is that correct, Ms. Carter?
Yes, through Your Worship, it's the municipal portion of the tax bill.
Oh, I see.
So
So,
not the
right. It's
school
because the
district.
school district, et cetera. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So it represents the 2017 expected taxes?
That's right. Just to be clear, this is for a 2016 grant, and I appreciate the fact that the deadline is long past. I believe it was January 31st, 2016. But in my letter of application, I asked for the discretion of the mayor and council to accept the application for 2016, at which point we would reapply for a grant going forward in 2017. The backstory of this is because we originally wished to apply for a permissive tax exemption, and through various discussions, it was concluded that this would be a better option for both the city and to Threshold to forward our work in the community and to help allay the cost of taxes.
Okay, but you've been there part of the year, and 4,200, et cetera, represents that part of the year for your taxes, as opposed to the whole year.
Yes.
So should some of this money be going to the church, or is that what I think that was what Councillor Braithwaite was getting at. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right. The 2016 calendar year, we would not be asking for the entire amount. I guess some of this would be prorated going into 2017.
Okay. So they'll have to put Ms. Carter, maybe you can sort this out, because I think what you're applying for is your tax portion for this year, however many months you've been there,
Mm-hmm.
and then we would look to a new application, should you wish, in 2017 for the 2017 taxes. Ms. Carter, can you shed some light on that math?
Yes, I certainly can. The amount that's being requested, $4,223, is the amount of the estimated 2017 property taxes, municipal portion of property taxes. Mr. Muldoon is applying for it against the 2016 grant.
Yeah, we were unable to secure the number or the percentage amount that we would be eligible for the 2016. So I just took the number that was suggested in the last council meeting and brought that forward in the application. But whatever amount that comes to, we applied for, I believe we, to be exact now, August 1st was our date of occupation for that particular property. And so you're looking at approximately 5 months, I believe, yeah, for getting a prorated amount to the 2016 tax rate.
Confusion might be a little deeper here. So if we give you 42.23, we will not see you back in 2017?
Well, we would ask that, no, we would come back in 2017, but not ask for the entire amount for 2017. We would, again, adjust it to the amount that was given today or given this year for 2016, because realize it's not a full year, and subtract that from the 2017 request.
Would it maybe not be cleaner
Probably.
if out of this year's budget, we give you whatever your taxes were this year? So let's call them X.
Sure.
And then next year you come back and make an application for Y, whatever that full year tax is. Is that good? Okay, so would it be possible, therefore, should council be willing to pay a grant in the amount of the taxes, for us just to say whatever the amount that we grant will be the amount as calculated by Ms. Carter for the 2016 tax year? In other words, as opposed to specifying an amount?
Yes, Your Worship. The amount for 2016 has not as of yet been calculated because the original request was based on 2017. But I could do that calculation, and you may wish to put a cap on it not to exceed the 4,223.
All right. Okay, that might be the best way to do it. So we would say the actual taxes, municipal portion this year, not to exceed 4,200.
Okay.
Whatever is the lesser of the two.
Just to continue on through you, Chair, you know, I'm okay with supportive of some sort of a grant, because I truly do believe that this is a wonderful organization that you're heading up, and it does really good work within our community. I think that perhaps funding for ongoing operational costs is something that I'm not really thrilled about, and so for you to come back again next year and ask for a grant to cover your taxes when we have other organizations within Oak Bay who come and ask for, I guess it's the Kiwanis Tea Room and the Girl Guides and the Boy Scouts. They come and ask for a complete, like a zero tax cost for them. So I'm wondering if that's perhaps what they should be doing, because I'm not really comfortable saying that next year they can come back and ask for us to give money to cover the taxes when really it should be something that's funded through the provincial government, in my humble opinion. So.
Okay. We did briefly discuss the issue of tax waiver. That's what you're suggesting. And we've not gone, to my knowledge, outside Oak Bay property to waive taxes. So all of our tax waivers relate to activities on our own property. So this would be a break and from that tradition. If council chooses to go down that route, that's fine. I think we probably need a little bit of thought on that, because we also need to look at, if we're going to go down that road, the implications of a general policy. Right, so, but we could certainly do that at some point in the new year.
And I'm not saying that that's something that we should support either. I'm just saying that I don't think I could support if they came next year and asked for a grant to cover their taxes, when, again, I think it's one of those things that I believe should be covered by the provincial government. So, but I'm happy to support it this year.
Okay, so we're debating 2016. When we get into 2017, we'll debate 2017. Okay, so is anyone prepared?
I'm ready to make the
make a motion?
As discussed earlier.
Okay. Ms. Jones,
with
is there enough specificity Mr. Jones?
Your worship, I think what council may be looking for in the resolution is that that council would support a grant equivalent to 5/12 of the 2016 taxes for this particular piece of property.
Okay.
So
Second.
moved.
Moved and seconded. No discussion or any other questions, Mr. Muldoon? Seeing none, call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Muldoon. And I think we all around the table echo the words of Councillor Braithwaite in terms of what, how you're helping these young people get back on the feet and be productive. And certainly, I mean, it's in keeping with what we talked about today with the CMHA about addictions, because we did hear the stories when you opened that some of these young people were suffering a variety of mental health issues. So we're very pleased that you're here and helping them right in Oak Bay. Thank you.
It's our pleasure to serve, and thank you for helping us to serve. Thank you.
Okay, the next item, that's number 6. This is an application to renew the operating agreement with our Greater Victoria Public Library. And it really is, it's a temporary interim agreement while the full, I can say not full time, but the agreement that we're all going to sign on is drafted and completed and gone around to all of the constituents. So.
Move receipt.
Second.
And this, that's right. We'll move receipt here, and then we're going to do it under the bylaws. Okay, thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Not opposed. I should have mentioned right off the bat that we have 2 councillors missing, and one of them I was reminded is Councillor Murdoch, who's chair of the Greater Victoria Public Library. He's at a public library event tonight that he wasn't able to get away from, and our other councillor Croft is out of town. Number 7 is a request for a motion to support the establishment of a regional transportation service. We have a correspondence from the director, Bryce, former mayor of our community, councillor in councillor in Saanich, and the Capital Regional District Transportation Select Committee Chair. So I would ask that if there's anyone who wishes to make the motion that we support this, we do so, and then we discuss it.
I would move the first motion there that says, sorry.
Okay, that the municipality supports the establishment of
That
regional
is
transportation
Oak Bay-
service
Yes,
through the
Oak Bay
CRD.
Council support the establishment of
Moved
regional
and seconded.
transportation service.
Just so we all understand, this is the equivalent of an in-principle acceptance, because we will see, depending what happens at the CRD, we will see a service bylaw come back to us that all of the people wishing to join that service will have to pass for the service to be completed. So there's still a few mountains to climb between here and there. So Councillor Kirby to start with, and then Councillor Zelka, please.
I just wanted to comment that I'm really pleased to see this happening because specifically, we've heard recently that at the Community Association's event last Monday on transportation, just that Oak Bay is falling behind a little bit as far as funding goes, obviously due to other commitments such as upland sewage separation projects and our aging infrastructure. We're falling behind on other transportation issues. And with limited dollars and limited capacity to seek funding from other levels of government, I think this allows us a great opportunity to collaborate with our partners across in Victoria and Saanich, where there are much larger transportation. They even have a transportation division of their engineering department, whereas we have a very meager.
I thought we had a transportation. Mr. Ding, isn't he the transportation division?
The division, one guy. It's a lot to carry on his shoulders, and so I'm really pleased that we can see more collaboration happen, and just that integration would be a real benefit to everybody. But specifically, I was excited by the idea that we could more effectively advocate for senior government funding with one united regional voice. And that's very encouraging. If we could all collaborate on grant applications and not have our staff spending time seeking out extra funds, that would be fantastic. So I'm looking forward to this.
Thank you. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. I'm echo Councillor Kirby's excellent words. I'm very interested in seeing public transportation supported, and I'd like to muse. I'm wondering whether Oak Bay will be graced again by streetcars one day. If maybe, or at the very least, find the rail line reused, used again between Victoria and out into Langford. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it's probably a little bit far off, but dreaming is fine. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
Thank you. I'm happy to support this motion. I would actually be happier to invite them to come to a committee of the whole meeting, because I think there are some questions that we should be asking. One of the questions that I would ask is that when they talk about the creation of the transportation service would be initially be cost neutral, as it would be focused on the consolidation of existing regional transportation. So my question would be, what does initially cost neutral mean, and what are the estimates of what it might cost after that, and when might those costs come forward? Because I don't want to see us burdened as a municipality with more costs. So that would be, if this motion didn't go through, I would then put a motion on the table to ask them to come to a committee of the whole meeting to discuss, because I think we should be questioning them on what that means, what cost neutral means to begin with.
Okay. If I could assist there, the one alternative to get to those kinds of answers would be once this is in principle, it'll go back to the CRD, and the bylaw will be developed and then sent out. I think when the bylaw comes back to us with its provisions, and and that'll be a subject to negotiating around the table of the CRD. I think that would be a very appropriate time to ask representatives from political and staff at the CRD to come and join us at a committee of the whole, because then we will know in black and white what it is that's being proposed in the bylaw. Right now, there's all kinds of not all kinds, but there's different permutations of how the bylaw could look, and it might in fact be a lot of the questions might be premature.
As long as that doesn't mean that it's already gone down the path and we don't have a chance to not support it at that point in time.
If we turn down the service bylaw, which we have the right to do, then we will not be in that service. And there will be a question as to whether or not the province may require unanimity. That's an issue that's, for me, it's a little bit up in the air. Okay. All righty. So no other hands. Yes, go ahead, please.
Unanimity at the board level?
For the service, for the for us to be part of a service at CRD,
yes,
we have to agree. Right?
The
it's voluntary
the CRD
thing.
board has to agree, not the,
No.
wouldn't have to be
Unanimity
unanimity at the council level.
Yes. Each council who's going to go into that service has to positively vote to adopt that bylaw in their hometown.
Unanimously?
No. The individual councils, no. But each of, and what I don't know is whether or not, and this is an open question, do all 13 constituent members have to pass this bylaw? I had a meeting with the mayors of the CRD, about 10 of them today, and we were told by one of the mayors that they're pretty well not going to be on board. They're not 100% there. Another mayor, they were still debating it. So if those two communities say no, it may be that we can't get a service. There may be a requirement that we have all of 13 in. That I don't know. I don't know if anyone can throw any light on this and what happened in the Lower Mainland with TransLink and all of that.
Your Worship, I'll give it a try. There are different mechanisms for regional districts to create services, and it depends on which of the mechanisms the board itself will choose. There are times when a board could choose to force various entities into a service. I think you would find the majority of times it's a voluntary service, meaning that communities don't join the service unless the municipal council of that community chooses to join. That's the normal practice.
Okay. And my understanding, and one of them may be what they call a counter petition throughout the region.
So, Your Worship, again, if they chose to do a counter petition throughout the region, then the service would be adopted if the counter petition throughout the region is successful. You can also choose to do a counter petition by municipality, so it really does depend at the end of the day which mechanism the board chooses to proceed with.
Okay. And so you can see there's a lot of procedural steps between now and when we see anything back here. And I think at least two of the mayors that I met with today were kind of laying down their positions very gently to saying, you know, this is going to be difficult in their community. So, all right. So go ahead, Councillor Zelka again.
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity to speak one more time. I'm very pleased to see the Dr. Robert Bish report referenced in the letter from the CRD. This is another example where we can show leadership on enhanced integration of services across the CRD. And I look forward to seeing this move forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead, please, Councillor Ney.
I guess this would be a question to you, Mr. Merrick, because of your role at the CRD and what your knowledge is around this initiative. But this would be a new sort of mechanism that we'd be using, and I'm just curious because I can't see a downside to this for our community. But given that others have expressed a downside, I'm wondering if you could articulate what their concerns are. I don't know if it's relevant for our community.
Well, I think it comes down to two things: cost and control. And they feel that they would be just over time given an annual invoice for this without really the ability to have a lot of say. They would have maybe 1/13 of a say, or maybe even less than that, in how the service develops and expands. And so I think there is also some communities that just have a natural, whatever the opposite of affinity is, for the CRD, and feel that a service of this nature might well benefit the core, not necessarily us, but the core, large core communities of Saanich and Victoria, and being paid for by the surrounding communities. So there's different communities that voice different concerns, but you know, they won't all be on the table for a while, but they will be there and they'll be debated. But really, for them, I think that the two main ones, I think, are cost, and then how do we control those costs? Okay. Yep.
Just one more thing. Maybe I'm misunderstanding what cost neutral means, because
cost neutral is in the first year, and the first stage. So the communities that are having a little bit difficulty with this are probably looking down the road 5 years, 10 years. Will that bill go up and up and up and up and up, and we won't be able to say no, and we just have to pass it on to our constituents. So, yeah, and the cost neutral they like. But I think we can probably all be certain that cost neutral is just in the early stages, and there will be costs depending on what's in the bylaw. I mean, it's like the GVPL. We know that's not cost neutral. Every year they have a new budget, and it could be more and more. But there's a governance structure there that has some caps. Same thing with CREST. We're in that, an integrated emergency radio. There's some caps on there, and there's some special governance or constitutional structures that have to kick in if there's more than a certain amount of increase in the budget. So it may be possible that this new bylaw would have those cost controls built into the bylaw. Yep, Mr. Jones.
Your Worship, the bylaw will have what's called a maximum requisition charge. So it will outline what is the maximum per $1,000 of assessed value a home could be charged. And that, I'm sure, will be a matter of a fair amount of discussion around the board table. They've got some numbers in the draft bylaw, but that certainly will be one of the issues that members of the board would discuss, and that is the way that you can control the maximum charge.
And that, I think that will be the main focus, right? All right. Okay. Thank you. I think we have a motion on the floor and no other hands. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much. The next one is the Capital Integrated Services and Governance Initiative. You may recall that we had a presentation at a committee of the whole from Mr. Abbott, Mr. Wall. I think there's just two or three of them. Those two people for sure were here. And on this issue, and this is an initiative that to some extent is led by the Municipal Services Ministry, Mr. Fassbender, and the one option here is just to receive the information and perhaps ask our staff to somehow put it on our website to inform our residents should they want to make any submissions or whatever, they can do so. I don't think, with all due respect to us, that we're in a position as corporately to put any point forward because we haven't had that discussion. I mean, obviously everybody knows what our non-binding referendum question was and the numbers surrounding that. But if we wanted to go further and actually set out a number of positions, I think we'd probably have to set aside a committee of the whole or two for that discussion. That's a very big discussion. So it may be, and this is in the early stages, so it may be something we can just ask our staff to ensure that we place on our website so people are informed and they can go to this place speak and put information there. So yes, go ahead please. Councillor Kirby first and then Councillor Braithwaite. Councillor Kirby.
I just had a question. I didn't understand as I read through the materials what they meant by stakeholders. Do they mean community associations? Do they and as council, it's not up to us to reach out as you've just mentioned, but that wasn't clear to me in the letter that they provided.
And it may have been purposely that way. Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Your Worship. It is unclear, and I think what that means is they're leaving it up to each council to decide for their community how they would like to proceed.
So it could be individuals, it could be local neighborhood groups, it could be community associations, it could be scout groups, it could be sporting groups, everyone who's affected by integration, directly or indirect. Could be faith groups, for instance. Could be cycling associations, could be anything. I think that's what I took from the vagueness of it all. So go ahead, finished? Councillor Kirby, yes, thank you. Councillor Braithwaite now, please.
Thank you. So I think your suggestion of getting staff to post it on the website is a good one, and perhaps we could also encourage the Oak Bay News to cover the process as they're here, and they're very good at that kind of thing. And so I would move receipt.
Thank you.
Second.
All right, and I don't suppose, Ms. Koenig, that we need any other direction other than that. We don't need a specific motion. Okay, thank you very much. Discussion, all in favor? Opposed, none opposed. Thank you. Now, we turn to our, you mentioned before the traffic division. We're turning now, this is the lighting division of the Department of Engineering. And Mr. Haran's here, our Director of Engineering Services, and in charge of the lighting division, who's making a suggestion here that, and the recommendation is here that Council give approval to the next phase of the LED streetlight program, and there's an incentive at the cost of $130,000 to be completed in 2017. Mr. Haran, we have your illuminating report in front of us. Someone had to say it. That you may want to shed some light on. Okay, that's the last one. Sorry, that is the last one.
I have to switch you off.
Can you just give us a very high level and just give us some kind of idea of the rollout? Because I know certain streets are, have these new lights. I know mine, and we're fortunate to have it on my street, and that our whole neighborhood, not just on my street, the whole neighborhood has that. And it's kind of expanding from there. I think I did shed too much light on my own street. Okay, Mr. Haran, you're up.
Yes, Your Worship. Our previous work was subject to PC Hydro rebates as incentive. The rebate program's ending. In 2015, we installed approximately 100 streetlights as part of our testing program, and this year we've done approximately just over 500. So the plan for next year would be do a similar amount, and that's what we're asking for here. And the aim of asking for early approval is to try to do the orders to achieve the lead times required. There's an inconsistent delivery timeline on the material. If we receive it in time, we can install the lights in 2017 and get the final rebate from BC Hydro.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Horan? Questions? Yes, for Mr. Horan, please. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you.
Councillor Ney.
Thank you. Through you, Chair, to Mr. Horan. So in your report, you indicate that there was very little negative feedback around the implementation of this program. What do you have any details about the nature of any of the negative feedback?
Through you, Chair, this will be anecdotal because I haven't seen the actual emails or reports, but generally the feedback is some folks, when you install the new LED lights, they appear to be brighter than just in terms of the perception versus the yellowish high-pressure sodium lights. When we measure them in terms of actually using the light meters, they're not. It's just difficult to get used to at first. So those are some of the feedback we received over the last few years. The other aspect is sometimes at least in other communities, I'm not so much sure here, there's when you select the lights, you have to make sure that you account for the glare and the different setup. So we've done those things. So that's why I say we have very little negative feedback so far.
Okay. Councillor Zelka, please.
Thank you, Chair. So question for staff. Thank you for mentioning the color. This month's Spectrum magazine from the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers has an article, coincidentally, about street lighting, LED street lighting. And I do encourage you, Director of Engineer, to take a look at it. It spends a lot of time looking at other municipalities and the various problems with the color of the LED light, this whole concept of glare. Those who have an Apple phone or some of the more recent updates to the Android phones have been talking about how to make your circadian rhythm better by getting rid of the blue and shifting to a yellow and all those other ways that people are sort of raising the effect of color on the nighttime environment. The article also touches on another point you made with respect to the blue color appearing to be brighter, even though it isn't to the eye. It's almost an optical trick. So I do encourage staff to take a look at some of the material that's available and seeing if we can somehow get away from the 4,000 Kelvin lights that are being installed across North America and shift maybe something closer to, which is the bluish range, and shift more into the 2,300 range, which is closer to the old sodium lights, which is a bit more of a yellowish range. I'm sure we would have absolutely no objections if the lights that were put in were relatively similar to what was before, so that there wouldn't be this glare issue and other possible issues with the nighttime environment. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Ney, please.
So to that point that Councillor Zelka is bringing up, because somebody sent me some articles, and I accept that I haven't had a chance to really fully explore this, but my understanding is that there are some communities that are actually pulling the LED lighting. I'm not at all suggesting or going to suggest that right now, but just from what I'm looking at here, I'm looking at concerns coming out of the American Medical Association and a bunch of studies that they're expressing, and there seem to be some details, and I'm not able to speak to it fully, around certain parts of the spectrum that are causing problems. And I guess my comment really is probably similar to Councillor Zelka, is that I mean, I would be concerned if we implemented this and then people are starting to have problems from being exposed to this. And I'm going to, can I assume that staff is up to date? I guess that's really probably my point. Up to date on what those risks might be to our citizens.
Through your worship, to Councillor Nay's questions and Councillor Zelka's questions, I have indeed read the IEEE article that Councillor Zelka is referring to. It's in terms of the technical solution, what's happening here in Oak Bay, there are issues that are observed in other municipalities in terms of what this article is talking about. But specifically here in Oak Bay, we've made some deliberate choices over the past 2 years in terms of testing a variety of manufacturers, wattages and color temperatures of the lights on a variety of street configurations. We've done measurements with the light meters in consultation with BC Hydro guidance, advice from other municipalities that have done this before, and followed the supplier technical guidance, and also we followed the, I'm just looking for one last reference here, the roadway lighting standard from the Illuminating Engineering Association or Society of North America. So this is not, we have done some significant work to ensure that we've chosen the lights to the best technical knowledge that we have, and so I recommend that we
Thank you.
that we go ahead.
Thank you. And I guess my final comment to that is that I do appreciate the cost savings that are going on here. So, and the implementation and the opportunistic efforts to snag some of the grants that are coming through. So thank you very much for your work.
Yeah, just through you, Chair, I would also like to thank you for the work that you've brought forward on this. I think that we can find studies about anything that we want to find studies on sometimes, and I'm happy to hear that you have looked into some of the concerns that have been raised, and so I'm very happy to support this and very thankful that our staff have done their homework on this, so thank you.
Okay. I have a quick question, Mr. Moran, in terms of the energy draw comparative. The old lights with the new lights. And we're saving?
I think, Your Worship, the best way to answer that question is in terms of the cost is about 1/3
Okay.
of the power cost per.
All right. And also, too, in terms of the longevity, because one of the things I noticed about the old lights were you'd be walking down the street and they'd go out, and I guess they reach a certain temperature and they would just kind of pause, but you'd lose your light on the street. I have not noticed that with these ones. Are these expected to last longer? Less maintenance?
So I don't have the full answer for you. I can say that the way they fail is different than the high pressure sodium, but in terms of longevity, I don't have an answer for that right now.
All right, thank you. Do we have a motion on the floor yet? No, so we need a motion, thank you.
I would like to move the recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
The
Moved and
council
seconded.
approve the next phase of the LED streetlight project. I
You want to
would,
speak to it now?
yeah, would like to
Go
speak to
ahead,
it. I'd
Councillor
like
Kirby,
to
thank you.
add some glowing praise for the dazzling report that is before us. I actually really appreciate this report. It's the fulsome nature of it, and the fact that the analysis and the strategic impact were outlined better than many reports that have come before, and not to say that they were inadequate, but this was stellar, and I really appreciate the full. Yeah, it was brilliant, and speaking from experience, because my light failed, and not out of favoritism, but seriously, the lamp standard failed in front of my house, and we've benefited from the improved lighting on the street, and it's on the street. It's not ambient lighting, which is I think a benefit for everybody. For cyclists and pedestrians, it's much safer because it lights your way and you're more visible to vehicles. So I think this is an excellent initiative, and I applaud staff for jumping ahead as quickly as possible, not to miss this March 31st deadline. And it's very unfortunate that the BC Hydro program, which was obviously well subscribed, was cut short so quickly, when in fact it is doing us a wonderful favor by saving 70% of power consumption on the lighting, street lighting, which I think is a huge contributor to greenhouse gas emissions. So I'm very pleased we're moving forward with this.
Okay. So there was just two. Well, those are dazzling, and what was the other one? Brilliant. Just thank you.
And illuminating.
Oh, I missed that
And
one.
glowing praise.
Sorry. Sorry, I missed that one. The light must have gone out in my... Okay, go ahead, Councillor Zelko.
Thank you, Chair. Speaking in support of the motion, I'm very pleased and that staff has done their homework, and thank you so much for bringing forward such an excellent report as well. Since we are a shoreline community, I know we have wildlife concerns, and of course we also have the bird sanctuary that surrounds us. So I imagine that staff will be sensitive also to the lights that are chosen closer to the water. Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you. Anything else? Okay, and I wish to add my voice to the thanks. I think this is the energy saving and replacement projects and an excellent initiative. Good. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much, Mr. Moran. We move now to from the lighting division. We move now to the sewage division. Right, I think that's the next one. This is a grant opportunity which Mr. Rand is going to be suggesting. We have, I think, an updated report. I think there might have been some typos or something in it on the original one typo. And what essentially we're being asked, Council, is to support applications for two types of funding. And they are both to the Clean Water and Wastewater Fund. To the province. First is to begin a detailed design phase of the Uplands sewer separation project, and that we commit $135,440 from capital as part of our 17% contribution. That's the first application. The second application relates to the Henderson water main, and same fund being applied to, and we would put the extension, the approximately $480,000 spent this year from the Water Capital Fund is the first phase be used to demonstrate our 17% on that one too. Have I got all of that right? Good, Mr. Rand, thank you. Is there anything you wanted to add? Go ahead, please.
Yes, Your Worship. I just wanted to point out specifically what the amendments were in the latest report that I've printed out for your desks. The first one was there's two changes. One is a modification to the financial impact portion of the report, where I removed reference to the federal gas tax. So this Clean Water and Wastewater Fund opportunity does not allow for stacking of grants, so we removed that and replaced it with capital. And the second aspect is I just added in the options and the recommendation the specific wording of the resolutions related to the recommended options. These resolutions, as they're worded, would meet the requirements of our grant application.
Thank you, Mr. Rand. Any questions? No? Okay, we need a motion.
Move the recommendations.
Second.
Okay. Moved and seconded, the two recommendations. Thank you. Discussions? Go ahead, please, Councillor Kirby.
I'll just quickly add that,
Thank you.
Again, this report was fantastic, and it really outlines some of the serious infrastructure issues that I feel that are facing our engineering department and have led to several challenges in achieving our strategic plans. And so I applaud their efforts at getting some supporting funding and to continue the efforts on the Henderson Water Main Extension Project, which I think will benefit all of Oak Bay and bring us up to at least a secondary water source. That's excellent work.
Thank you very much. Any other points? No? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Go on to number 12, which starts with new business, etc.
Number 11.
Don't we have to move receipt?
Number 11.
Oh, yes. Those were the correspondence. I skipped over that one. Thanks for pointing that out. So these are two pieces of correspondence which come up later. So we need to receive those formally.
Move receipt.
Moved. Seconded. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. They will be essentially before us when we get to the matters that they relate to. Now we're under number 12, and that is new business. Let's start with that. Is there any new business? Councillor Ney.
Okay, so I've got a motion before the council, a Deer Management Plan motion, and what I'd like to do is move the motion, but I'd first like to apologize to council because under normal procedural process, we have a sort of, I guess, gentleman's agreement that we would put forward a notice of a motion before we put a motion forward. But in this instance, the nature of the motion demonstrates that there is some time sensitivity to the motion. And so I am putting this forward as a motion for council to consider. So I'd like to defer to you, Chair, about whether we need a vote, whether to consider this as a motion, because it's not a notice.
Well, and you describe it as a gentleman's agreement. I don't really think there is an agreement either amongst gentlemen or gentlewomen for that matter, but I think it's just been a bit of a practice. But if there is a consensus to deal with it under new business, then we can do that. But Mr. Jones, do you advise it be a separate motion to admit this particular piece of new business, or we just go right into it, and if people have objections to it, they can turn it down as new business?
Your Worship, that's correct. You can
Yep.
just go right into the motion.
Okay, so.
Okay, so
we
thank
start-
you, Mr. Mayor.
Start with making the motion.
Okay, so I'll
please.
move the motion.
Yep. And just, if you could read the motion, you don't have to read the whereases.
Should I do that before it's seconded, or, it's
No,
okay,
yes,
so read
yeah,
the
you
motion.
read it first,
'Cause
and then
I'll
you move it,
motivate
and then if there's a seconder,
motivate.
then we debate it, and if there's no seconder, we don't debate it.
Okay, so the motion reads as, shall I read the whereas,
No,
Mr. Mayor? Just the
motion.
motion? Okay, Oak Bay submit an application to the BC Ministry of Lands, Forest and Natural Resources to meet the November 22, 2016 deadline for matching funds of up to $20,000 to contract the Urban Wildlife Stewardship Society to develop and implement a deer reduction plan using fertility control.
Okay, it's been moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Discussion. I'm going to ask you, Councillor Ney, as the
Let me
mover,
Motivate. Okay.
to start off the debate, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So back in, I believe it was February of 2016, Council made a motion to move forward with a deer management program. And we put aside $10,000, there was $10,000 as I understand in the kitty. And then more recently, we've completed a community satisfaction survey that on which there were 3 questions that helped to inform a policy decision at the council table. And 2 key issues that came forward, or 2 key findings, I suppose, that came from that survey were that it showed the community was looking for a more effective control of the deer population in Oak Bay. And it further demonstrated that the community is divided when it comes to considering a lethal deer reduction program, a cull. And so with that in mind, and in the context of those initiatives by council, I've put forward this resolution to take advantage of the matching funds provided by, that are being provided for by the BC Ministry of Lands, Forest and Natural Resources. And as I say, there is a time sensitivity because the November 22 deadline is looming. And we're sort of in a pinch because we only received the information from the community survey about a week and a half ago to help inform a decision here. And so that kind of explains the reasoning for the motion at this time and putting it to council for consideration to take advantage of this funding.
Thank you. Any other speakers? Go ahead, please, Councillor Kirby.
Well, I think I've expressed over a number of times about my disagreement with taking this issue on as a municipality without the resource people on staff and the biologists and conservation officers and the expertise in general on staff, not to mention the budgetary resources. I think I would support this effort because I don't see that the province is making any moves to manage their herd. And despite the fact that with the recent deer, human, dog conflicts, conservation officers were called, and with an unsatisfactory result for those involved. They felt that there was no action taken, and they were asked to call again if there was another issue. And so I would support this motion because I see it as our only option in trying to come to make a plan that the community can be less divided over. We would be taking action. We would be addressing the concerns of the community with regards to the growing number of deer being hit on the streets by cars, and the concern that there may be a child or a dog injured or senior, or any, there has been one woman was injured, but only minorly. But next time it could be worse, and there's growing concern. I think this would begin to address the issue. We don't know what the result would be, given that I think this is a research project. We don't know what the outcome will be. But at the same time, at least we're making steps forward and taking advantage of the funds offered by the province after years of negotiation, urging several resolutions to UBCM, lobbying efforts, and with no greater step than this. And I think $20,000 is more than we can expect from them in the future as far as service is expected. So service levels. So I'd like to also express concern that if we're to do this, if this motion is successful, I'd like to signal to staff that we would not expect this to be done with the resources currently allotted, that there should be consideration given to the fact that this is additional work. This is not necessarily their area of expertise. We have never dealt with managing a herd before, and of wild animals. It's not the bailiwick of the municipality. But given that this has been downloaded on us, we must take up that effort if we choose to move forward on this issue. And so I would expect that we would allocate further resources, that this can't just be a $20,000 matching grant and expect that staff would be able to implement a plan without some further resources allocated. So this will be more money. And we saw from our participation in the pilot project, where we were committed to $20,000, which went up to $25,000, which went up to $55,000, that it does grow. It's not an easy file to manage. It's very time consuming and heavy on the resources. So I think we need to reconcile that if we're to move forward.
Thank you. Just on the point of what this motion does, it doesn't put the onus on our staff. Essentially, it says that we're contracting the issue out. Okay, so it will not be done in-house. The only thing that will be done in-house is the contract management and oversight, which I think, given the size of the contract, once the work is done as to what the contract looks like, I think after that, contract administration will be relatively minimal compared to other contracts. It's not quite like Mr. Horan, for instance, when we contract out the work for the sewer separation, there's a lot of oversight and checking and following. This I think is going to be on the scale at the lower end. It will not be done in-house. Okay, so I think that's an important distinction here with this motion. Yes, go ahead, please.
I just I don't think that we expected, certainly I didn't expect that the previous pilot project would have consumed our staff as much as it did and put us behind on very important projects. I would be loath to see our strategic plan be drowned by this as a priority. I think housing is more important. Updating of bylaws is more important. Bringing our bylaws up to match our official community plan are more important to me than, and you know, other infrastructure challenges than seeing this move forward. So I'm not sure that that's the case. I mean, that year of the pilot project really consumed our staff, and I think we need to be really cautious.
Okay, thank you. That was all done in-house by our staff. Okay. Councillor Zelka next, please.
Thank you, Chair. My thanks to Councillor Ney for bringing this forward and for structuring it this way. I appreciate the way you've worded it, in focusing on contracting essentially the bulk of the work out to another organization or to another entity. I agree with Councillor Kirby. Certainly don't want to overly burden our staff in any way whatsoever. Certainly not the same way as the last time we were trying to address deer. I'm very much in favor with the wording that's been put forward. I want to thank also the Mayor for the leadership that you're showing on the Provincial Urban Deer Reduction Committee. And thank you for bringing this to the attention of council and staff. And I'm looking forward to seeing a good collaboration and a good work going forward with the community in a way that we can all do this in a relatively conflict-free way as we try to reduce our urban wildlife conflicts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Braithwaite, please. Then I'm going to call the question.
Thank you. Thanks to Councillor Ney for bringing this forward. I do have a bit of a concern, though, because I don't really believe that it's something that we've actually agreed to do as a council yet. It could be that we are going to end up with a deer reduction plan based on fertility control. But my feeling is that this motion, dare I say, it kind of trumps what we've been trying to work on. I know, I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself. I think it trumps the process that we normally try and follow. For example, we don't have a full council sitting here tonight. I think that's important that we would have a full council sitting around this table when we're discussing something like this, really based on how much angst we've had around this subject in the past. So I would really, truly like to see the full council sitting around the table. And I'm really still unclear as to whether or not using a drug like this harms the meat of the deer, for example. Like, do we know if using the fertility drug harms the meat of the deer so that people can't eat that meat if it came to that? We don't know that yet, because it's so, as far as I know so far, this drug has been untested. So, you know, the survey does say that we need more effective control of the deer population, but what control we use hasn't been decided yet. And I thought, coming out of the priority session, that was something we were going to discuss in the future. I'm not prepared to jump in and say, just because $20,000 is available, that we should apply for it. I don't think that we should apply for something when we're not prepared yet, when we haven't had that truly fulsome discussion around this. So I can't, unfortunately, support the motion. And I really think that we have to use our heads when we're thinking about this and not our hearts. And my feeling is that we're tending to use our hearts a little bit more in trying to take care of something that we haven't fully discussed yet. So unfortunately, even though I would like to support your motion, I can't support your motion.
Okay, thank you very much. I'm just going to say something and then we can call a question, unless it's something completely new and different. If it needs to be said, you should say it, but if you've already said something similar?
No, I guess my point is in terms of this being expedited and that our council colleagues aren't at the table. We have been talking about this for over 2 years now. And there's been lots of opportunity to, for us to address, our concerns and issues. We've been debating this back and forth. And but I do appreciate there is this time sensitivity to this, but I think this is a very reasonable approach. It's a more gentle approach to address the concerns that have been expressed by the community, and I don't see that it's going to conjure up the divisiveness that is taxing on our staff and our community. So I'm going to support the motion.
Okay, I will too, thank you. And I don't disagree that we've kind of done this out of order, given that we have the priority session. But I think given the deadlines and given the opportunity, I think there's good reason to do it out of order. In terms of, we don't have the whole contingent here today, I also appreciate that we've taken the big issues and we've made sure all 7 around the table. I don't think that would change the numbers. I got a sense just from listening to the debate. That's number one. But number two, what I'm going to suggest is that we, between now and next week, that the application be actually completed by the society, because they're the ones who know most. And then it'd be brought back to this table next week on a special meeting, because it normally is a committee of the whole, but we can squeeze a council meeting in there. And that we actually approve the application at that point with all 7 people around the table. So, all right. So I think that's the way to deal with that second issue of yours. And I think we certainly have a sense of what our 2 colleagues, which way they want to go, but they'll need to express that themselves. Okay, so I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Councillor Braithwaite opposed. It passes 4-1. Thank you. Report, any other new business? Okay. New business? Okay. Okay. Report from the CRD district, that's me. And in Mr. Horan's presence, we discussed the issue at the CRD, and Mr. Horan was down to listen to the scintillating debate. And that was essentially surrounding the upland sewer, the next step. And the next step is that we, you may recall that we agreed to forward our request to the CRD in terms of how we approach it, how we separate it, what the new pipe is going to be, and also the length of time, and also our staging, I guess, of the project. So that went to the CRD table last week with a recommendation by the CRD staff that it go out to a technical committee for comment. The only resistance that I heard around the table, I heard lots of way to goes, and it seemed like a very good public process, which we all know it was. There was 2 speakers who spoke against it because of the 30-year horizon. Although it was pointed out to one of the speakers that this is not too different from the horizon that Victoria is using to deal with their I&I. So it'll now go out to the technical committee, and I'm not sure the exact composition, but essentially is engineering departments from the various communities. I don't know if everyone is represented there. Mr. Horan, do you know the makeup of that particular committee?
Your Worship, the committee specifically is it's new to me as well, but it's more than just, there's a group of municipal engineers, but there's also representatives from the BC government, from various organizations, Department of National Defense, First Nations, and other community organizations as well.
Okay. And I pointed out to them that the Vancouver, I thought, got in the range of about 80 years to do theirs. Ours is obviously much smaller. I can also tell you, and I don't know, I can't remember if I mentioned this to you. Yes, I think I mentioned to the CRD that we've been in discussions with the minister on several occasions, and she's not had any difficulty with the length of time. Her concern was get on with it. And so with those 2 dissenting voices, it passed, and hopefully very soon it'll come back. I don't know how long that committee will want us review it, but it'll come back as soon as they're done their work, perhaps in December. And if it's then agreed to by the CRD board, it'll go to the ministry for approval. And the ministry has been advised all along as to what we're thinking, and we've in fact had some meetings with the minister and the staff. I think there was a couple of staff when we met with her. So everyone's on board for a quick turnaround, and I'll update you after the next meeting. So that's what I have to report. Other verbal reports. Councillor Braithwaite. Something under the table. She
Yeah.
brings out a soccer ball for the record.
The mayor and I were lucky enough to be at the official grand opening ceremony of the Oak Bay High School turf on November 9th, and the municipality was presented with this ball signed by a number of dignitaries who were present at the opening, and I think that it's fair to say that we're thrilled to have our very first full field turf field within Oak Bay, and we were happy to be there to support it. So we have this ball now. So
And a beautiful day it was, sunny, and the lights, if you've gone by there at night, are very bright, and it's a real addition to our neighborhood. So, okay, thank you. Any other new business? Or, sorry, verbal reports. That's what we're doing. No? Okay, let's move on now. Thank you very much. Heritage alteration permit. Okay,
I'm really
we go
sorry, I
back to
forgot
number
one thing.
12.
I'm going back. Just a reminder that there is an emergency preparedness session tomorrow night, and in lieu of the earthquake that just happened in New Zealand, I think it's very important that people go out and learn how to become prepared for something that is sure to happen within our area in a short period of time, I'm quite sure. So tomorrow night at Windsor Pavilion from 7 to 9.
Thank you very much. Now we move on to number 13, Heritage Alteration Permit with Variances, and that's at the 1701 Beach Drive, affectionately known as the GNS School, and the junior school, I guess we call it. Yes, I do see the chair of the board, the GNS board here. We have the application. This is a bit of a historic occasion, not just for the school, but for our process point of view. Typically, we have two meetings like this, one where we send it out for notice, and then we table it, and then it comes back and meeting. And with the advice of our staff, we've cut that meeting out, and we go right from the committee of the whole right to this board in terms of having completed, check off the notice. So the notice has been done. So it's not a matter of, at this point, of lifting it like we did in the old days. It's a matter of moving it, seconding it, and then I'm going to call upon any members of the public who wish to speak to us. So
I'll move the resolution.
moved and seconded. Okay, so before we have discussion, I could say that we've heard from the applicants at our committee of the whole, and what I'm going to do is going to see if there's members of the public that are here wish to address us, and then the applicant can reply as they wish, and then the council may have some questions for you based on what they hear or what they've read. So is there any member of the public who wishes to come forward to address us on the issue, please? State your name and then just sign in there and let us know who you are, and it might be helpful given that this is a specific application where you live.
Sure. Good evening, Your Worship. Thank you, and honorable councillors. My name is Naomi Pope, and I live
We
across...
have that letter, the
Yes.
correspondence, so that is before us, Ms.
Thank
Pope.
you.
Thank you.
And so as you know, I live across the street from GNS, and my son attends the school as well. So it's a bit awkward to be speaking in this kind of environment, of course, but I feel like I need to have my voice heard at the same time. So we've attended every single GNS open house about the building project, and the most recent one was in June, and that's where I included the photo that we saw. And I understand that just talking with the architect just before the meeting, that there are beautiful plans that we saw, that we haven't that were presented at the committee of the whole, but. When we were at the open house in June, we had no idea that this was coming before the committee. And when we saw the billboards go up for the land use contract for that discharge, that's when we came down and, looked to see the plans and looked to see what was going on, because we thought, okay, activity is starting to pick up on this, so, time to take a look. And so we also, at the same time, there were meetings being taken place for the Heritage Conservation Area. So we were attending that as well. And I was really surprised that so many members that were involved in the Heritage Conservation Area initiative had no idea what was going on at the GNS building site. There were a lot of questions at the meeting. What is the building going to look like? What is going on? What is it, what's involved? And I felt like I was one of the only people who really had a sense of that. So I attended the October 11th meeting, which was for the land use discharge meeting, and that's also when I became aware that there were all these materials on the web, relating to this building plan, and that's when I noticed the renderings of what it would look like right across the street. And so in talking with neighbors and others, immediately the next day, October 12th, I emailed the school saying, whoa, wow, what's this? We didn't see these before. The rendering of the streetscape with a brick wall, and so I did note that as well. So at every open house that we attended, we voiced our concerns, and so we just wanted to just make sure that our voice was being heard and recognized as well. So we hope that moving forward, there's an opportunity. And I think in the letter, I really wanted it to be something that can be positive for the community. And I really see that there is an opportunity, to enhance the architecture. And I'd be more than willing to discuss it and talk about it. And perhaps there's an opportunity at the upcoming Committee of the Whole to see what was presented. I saw a quick glance as to what the architect had presented in July. And I'd love to see it again, right across the street. And we're trying to be proactive and informed. So thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Pope. Is there anyone else who wishes to address us? Okay.
Hi, I'm Karen Wallace-Prince, and I live on 1525 Prospect Place. And I actually came completely unprepared. Similarly to Naomi, I wasn't really aware that this was moving on as quickly as it was. The only notice that we seemed to get as neighbors was for a meeting that was held May 13th, 2015. My husband had a heart attack on May the 11th, 2015. So today I looked at the calendar and I saw that I had written it down, meeting GNS 5:30 to 7:30, but I crossed it through because I couldn't attend it. But I don't actually think we ever got another notification about any meeting that was there. I'm a GNS parent, a past parent. My children are both lifers at the school. We love the school. We have many things to thank GNS for. And I'm really happy that they are developing and renovating the school. I think it's very much needed. I think they're very fortunate to be on the campus that you're on. I love the Rattenbury House. Many years ago, when Steve Johnson was the head there, I also live in a Rattenbury House. So when I went into, and I have daughters, and that was always the boys' campus, so we never got to use that campus. But I did get to go in one day, and I saw that the fireplaces, particularly the one outside the head's office, was painted. All the tiles were painted, and I had also stripped tiles in our house. So I said to Steve, "May I come and do this here in the school?" And he said, "Oh, I'd be thrilled if you did." So I feel a part of me is there because I love the house and I love the campus. I appreciate the work that they've done in the work up till now with the architecture, the care that they're going to put into the renovating of the 3 heritage buildings, the fact that they have that precious shoreline. That's all had to have been taken care of. I worry about moving of the coach house. It is brick. I understand that there'll be a ramp going down similar to the apartment next door that will lead to 29 parking spaces. worries me a little bit because it must involve blasting, and blasting always concerns me, and it's right next to a heritage house, and I also worry about the beautiful oak that's there, and so I have big worries of it, but I also really appreciate that it's needed and it's necessary. And I think because now we have personally taken on a really large project in the heritage conservation area, and we have a very large grassroots group. And it's true, as Naomi said, when we had our meeting of 30 people, most of us were not aware that this was happening. And so it kind of came up on us rather quickly. And I wonder, and maybe it's too late, if it would be possible to have some sort of a interaction with the neighbors. Because I really think it would be to work hand in hand on this, or is really important. The Rattenbury house and the coach house and the boathouse are a real anchor to our neighborhood. Broome and San Carlos, they just empty right out onto Beach Drive, right at that campus. If we're lucky enough to have the Heritage Conservation Area, that's very much a part of it. And we would love GNS to be a part of our Heritage Conservation Area. It was something that we had planned on doing, was asking them. And then this came up, and we thought, oh, they've got all these plans done. Is it too late? So we would like to still have conversations with the school and see if we can work together on this, because we do wish them well. I personally definitely wish them well. So I pretty much think that's all about I have to say.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Ms. Prince. Is there anyone else who wishes to come forward other than the applicant? Okay, so now I'm going to ask the applicant. I don't know who's going to speak. Is it going to be you or?
Possibly just me, but
Okay.
possibly Chris as well.
If you could, it would be helpful for us if you could just address kind of how this was rolled out and how
Yes.
people at the school and others were involved. I know it's been before us numerous times. It's also been through the Heritage Commission and the advisory
Design panel,
right?
yes, and the committee of the whole. Your Worship, members of council, my name is Chris Denford. I live at 644 Island Road, and I'm the chair of the board. It is correct that back in May, a year and a half ago, we had our first introduction to the project with our neighbors. And actually, we went beyond the suggested area to engage neighbors, and we did that. And of course, it's been a year and a half now we've gone through the process. I just wanted to, I guess the most important thing I wanted to say tonight was that, it has been a year and a half process, and I was a little surprised when the letter from our neighbor came in at 5 o'clock tonight, basically on the eve of this meeting. So I was scrambling to take a look at what was written. And I guess the thing I really had to focus on was the statement about the fact that she was suggesting that the plans we submitted were not the plans that are before council. And I have 4 kids, so my memory is a little bit shot these days. So I had to talk to Chris, and we did confer quickly this evening, and just to make sure, we were pretty sure that those were the correct plans. And sure enough, right from the start, we have actually shared those plans with our neighbors. And of course, those are the plans that are before you.
Sorry, the other Chris you referred to?
Sorry, Chris Rose, our architect.
Okay, so
Yeah.
we all know there's
Yeah.
2 Chris's, okay?
So I had a brief panic attack, but it was confirmed that the plans that we shared with all of our neighbors are the plans before you. I guess where the bit of misunderstanding came was that the one sketch that was provided in the letter was actually a very crude illustration of the phasing plan. So it wasn't meant to illustrate the plans, it was just meant to illustrate how the phasing will take place. So that's where that bit of confusion came. But the plans that are before you were the plans that were thoroughly shared with our neighbors, and we've had the plans available at the school for the past year and a half. We've had several conversations with neighbors in the meantime, so I just wanted to clarify that point.
Just
And,
while you're on that point.
yes.
So, and you say the plans, that not all of us can read architectural from the top down kind of stuff. Would have what it would look like from the street? And
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a complete package.
The
So I
complete
just wanted
package.
to clarify that.
Thank you.
So if you have any other questions or technical questions, we have Chris Rowe here, who is our architect. Thank you.
Councillor Braithwaite, a question for Chris number 1 or Chris number 2?
A crisscross. Chris number 2.
The architect,
Sorry,
please.
Chris
Thank
number
you.
1.
Mr. Rose?
Thank you but thank you, Chris number 1, for explaining that the plans were the same as what was originally shown, because that was one of my questions. So thank you for that. My next question would be in regards to something that Ms. Pope asked about, which was the blasting. Can you please talk to us about how much blasting that could be expected on that site?
Yes. I'll identify myself. I'm Christopher Rowe from Low Hammond Rowe Architects, working for the school. I'm also a resident of Oak Bay at 1592 Hampshire Road. Blasting, the amount of blasting is still to be determined, because we don't know how much rock there is in the areas of excavation. We think that it may be a two-edged sword, because we will be doing an archaeology investigation around Christmas time, and we're hoping we don't find anything significant, which will, if we find something significant, it will mean because there wasn't much rock there. There will be rock. There's also a great deal of fill that was put in, we believe, when Mr. Rattenbury built his house. He pushed out the shoreline considerably. When blasting is done these days for excavations of this sort, before any of that blasting work is done, the blasting contractor and their insurance agents, of course, visit all neighboring properties. They do an assessment. They take down all the details and basically insure neighboring property owners within whatever the reasonable radius is that any damage will be made right following the blasting work.
Just to follow up to that,
Yes,
because
yes, go
that's
ahead, please.
one of the biggest concerns that we've had throughout the municipality is from blasting and the damage that it can inflict on neighboring houses. So that the fact that you go into the house and take pictures throughout the house, so that you have a record of what damage is there already, I'm happy to hear that. And then, is there different types of blasting that you might use, or?
Generally, it will depend on the amount of rock to be removed. It tends to be, especially in residential areas, it's done in small doses, to reduce the impacts on neighboring properties, and it's done selectively. In fact, some people say the drilling for the blasting is a bit more irritating than the blasting itself.
Thank you.
Let's see if there's any other questions from Councillor Kirby, please.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify some of the sort of discrepancies I see between the letter that we've received and the plans that you submitted, and just to clarify the view corridors. In the letter we received, there's sort of just a red block, and I guess you've got it, so you
Yes.
can see. Okay. And the before and after photos, and my understanding is that there is a breezeway between the two buildings.
That's correct. Or
And-
open space, yes.
Borrowing that expression from the high school, I guess. So it's open space between the two buildings, and then it seems to me that it's it looks different than in this image from the image we saw previously. I assumed that there was more than just brick on the street street side.
There are areas of wood, there are areas of stone as well, and of course there's an intensive green roof on top that would be one of the more visible attributes of the building. Shall I carry on then?
Yeah, no,
All
that's
right, thanks,
that's
Councillor
good. And
Kirby.
then just the other thing I wanted to just query, why there aren't, I guess, is it privacy that the reason for the brick?
There are a number of reasons. One was, I guess, the original design intent was with these two outbuildings was to not make an extremely detailed architectural statement, that they would be more of a quiet complement to the heritage buildings, and that they were attempted to merge into the landscape. So that's one consideration. The other is no, we do not want the junior kindergarten and kindergarten children to be sort of on display to the street. Thirdly, although this was never part of our original pitch to committees and council, as we start to get ready to develop the work in detail, it's our intent to do these two kindergarten buildings as passive house buildings. So having a bit of opacity on that wall is important. We're not keeping the children in the dark, because the east face of these buildings and the south faces are about 75% glazed, open to nature and the ocean. So I think certainly in terms of protecting the quality of life for the occupants, I think it does a good job. If I could just clarify what we considered the discrepancy in Dr. Pope's letter was the image that she shows on the last page of her letter, as Mr. Denford indicated, is taken from a series of 4 diagrams that show the phases of construction, but they were presented alongside not only plans, elevations, and an actual animation fly-around of the building that conforms to the design that has been submitted as part of the application, presented all the way along. So I could see perhaps how that misunderstanding might arise, but from our very first public open house in 2015 in May, we have presented the scheme as submitted. We've been quite forthright and open in showing our understanding of what critical views were and what the impacts on views were. And in fact, there was a presentation board that showed that the new kindergarten footprint would perhaps have an impact on some of those glimpse views through the site. And then I guess finally I would note that maybe not finally, the design that we have submitted actually has it is no higher than the existing kindergarten buildings, and portions of its roof are in fact somewhat lower. The existing buildings are between 16 and 18 feet tall at their ridge. The new buildings are between, let me get this right, between 10 foot 9 and 14 foot 9. So they are a little bit lower, and they improve some glimpses. I must say that we never considered that the views through this part of the site were perhaps as critical as, say, those of the Rattenbury House. We never really thought of them as public views, because when you're actually on the street in the public realm, the views tend to be over a hedge and through trees to glimpses through more trees and around buildings. And then I guess finally, to wrap up, I don't need to remind council that we weren't really obliged to protect particular view corridors by any municipal regulations.
That's understood, which is our responsibility to keep everybody in mind. I'm glad you mentioned the roof height. That was my next question, that I was under the understanding that they were lower than the roof heights of the other.
Generally speaking, they are lower than the existing buildings. It's fair to say that the width of them is greater than the existing buildings. Hence, the new junior kindergarten at the south end of the site will block a portion of that glimpse view.
Mm-hmm. But that does help with the red block image we've received. It's higher than the other buildings, I think. So so that assures me that they will be able to still see the ocean over the roof. So that's a very nice.
I'd also point out that the profile of the buildings is a pitched roof, not a continuous straight line.
Yes, yeah, I did notice that. And so we'll be able to see the green of the green roof, which is lovely. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kirby. Councillor Zelka next, please.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you for the opportunity to talk about the design. I appreciate the comments brought forward by the public. And I guess I'll direct my question to Chris number 2.
Thank you.
You mentioned that you were thinking of a passive design in general, so you were hoping for a stone wall facing the street.
It's a combination of stone, brick, and wood claddings, depending on which portion of the wall it is.
And you're hoping for stone because of why? Or brick?
It's consistent with the base materials on the house and the coach house, so it's kind of a part of the vocabulary of materials. It's also a material that's going to be used on the main school building. We wanted to contrast, this is perhaps a bit obscure architectural talk, but we wanted to contrast the lightness and transparency on the ocean side with a more sort of perhaps mysterious and opaque side on the street side, and sort of build a bit of excitement for children entering the school. It's also an area on the inside of the classrooms that has a lot of storage. It has toilets and things such like. And then finally, in the landscape scheme to go along with the green roof, we would anticipate that there will be vines planted along there, and the masonry surfaces can sustain that a bit better than other materials.
Thank you for that. The vines on brick, I understand most buildings, they actually take the vines off of brick because they tend to degrade the brick. So
perhaps over hundreds of years, but it depends on the type of ivy. I don't think we'd be planting English ivy on it.
Well, I do appreciate the public comments that have come forward around the spareness facing the street with respect to that particular. And I'm sensitized to it. I actually had seen it before, but then when I take a closer look, I didn't realize it was so institutional. And yes, it's a school, but I have noticed that facing the Rattenbury House for the students is more of a stonework, and facing, of course, the water is more wood. But facing the street, it's rather plain. And I understand that there's a desire from an architectural perspective to maybe tone it down. I was wondering if it's possible to maybe consider switching the brick, or switching the spareness for something a little more natural, possibly. Or possibly if you talk about a landscape plan of some sort where you actually are intending on making that appear to be a green wall, to my eye, tone it down. From being so institutional. Mm-hmm. I do have to concur with some of the comments that I've heard. In context, now that I look again with fresh eyes, it does appear barren to me, to my view. Is that something that you might consider?
We would certainly consider it. We hadn't considered it until tonight because it hadn't really risen as a major issue, and we took I guess some comfort from the comments of the Heritage Advisory Commission and the Advisory Design Panel, who were somewhat congratulatory or positive about the design of these buildings. So, but we'd more than happy to consider a variety of things that would help reassure people that it will be a very attractive building. To my way of sort of looking at things, the design in general is excellent. I appreciate and very much appreciate what you've done with the Rattenbury House, and I know many of my heritage colleagues, colleagues on the Heritage Commission, are absolutely thrilled, in particular with that building. But with respect to these newer buildings, we're working on it. While on one hand, there are things that you don't need to do with respect to the law. On the other hand, you are asking for variances. So mm-hmm. I guess you could say there's a bit of horse trading that sometimes needs to mm-hmm. go along, as you know. So a question then I have through the chair, maybe to staff, is is something like a landscape plan part of this process, or is this something that comes later with maybe a separate building permit or a separate process? Or if there was to be any kind of a landscape aspect to try and, for example, if they were open to toning that wall down, would this be something that would be done now, or would be done at a later stage? I'm just curious. Where
Mr. Thompson?
There is some landscaping done by, I believe it is McGrief.
Murdoch de Grief.
Murdoch McGrief.
Yep.
So it is incorporated in the site plan now, some of the landscaping. Now, if there's some modifications to that landscaping, that could certainly be looked at a later date, I guess, if they were to increase some landscaping there.
Follow-up question, if I may. Are you referring to the environmental plan dated May 16th, Murdoch? Or is it another?
Yeah, they talk about some of the materials in the development permit area.
I don't want to get bogged down in the details, but I just wanted to know whether something like a landscape plan is sort of part of this process or it comes later. And it sounds like you're saying it would come now, or there's some still room for negotiation if we approve this.
Yeah, it generally is part of this plan. I'm just looking for, I thought there was, just give me one moment.
If I may, while Mr. Thompson's looking, we did submit a schematic landscape plan with indication of the types of planting that would go into each area as part of our original application, but I'm not sure if that has made it into the agenda package or not.
Yeah, I don't see it in this package.
Okay, it's not in the package right now. Councillor Zelka, any other questions? No, that's fine. Thank you very much. No other questions? Thank you. I think we're ready now. No other members of the public? Okay, thank you. We're now ready to discuss this and to make a decision once we hear from Mr. Jones.
Thank you, Worship. I just want to make it clear that if council as a whole is looking for any changes, now would be the time.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep. And I think what I heard from Councillor Zalka was just maybe something that they can review, but not necessarily. I mean, I don't think that would be a change that to the plans if you put wood, 6 inches wood versus 8 inches wood, which is 10 inches of stone, whatever, right? I don't think that that wouldn't require any amendment to come back here with that kind of minor architectural changes.
No, minor changes I can approve.
Yep.
And if then is there any concern with the amount of change, then it would come back to
Sure.
council.
Okay. Thank you. Now, discussion. Councillor Zelka, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. I hear, number one, we're doing a new process. This is, I guess, the first time we're actually coming forward under the new lean, reduce red tape process, where we're actually removing one of the meetings from the process as an attempt to sort of speed things up. And I just find it very interesting that with that attempt to move forward and satisfy one set of customers, we unfortunately have another set of customers coming forward to say, "Hey, I didn't hear about this. What's going on?" And
That doesn't, our change has no relationship to that.
Well, we are removing one meeting from the cycle, where normally we would table it at this meeting, and then it would come forward on, for example, the November 28th meeting, where we would actually at that point bring it forward, and we would be in this moment we're about to potentially approve it. So that's the aspect I'm referring to with respect to possibly some of the drawbacks with respect to the lean reduced red tape initiatives, where there is potential opportunities, as we've seen here, actual opportunities where some members of the public unfortunately have felt like they didn't get enough notice. I'm wondering out loud whether it might be appropriate for us to table this to give, once maybe we approve, once we actually bring the motion forward, to possibly table it and give one more opportunity for the public and the proponent to maybe have a meeting to ensure that the public is fully informed and aware of what's going on.
Okay. It's not a matter of bringing the motion forward. The motion is before us now. It's live. So if you want to table it, you have to make a motion.
I wish to move that we table this to allow the proponents and the public to potentially have one more.
You just have to say you want it tabled.
Tabled.
Okay. Any seconder? Okay. No seconder. So that motion is not going to be debated. We're back on the main motion, please. Anything else you wish to add to that? Okay. Anything else anybody wishes to add? All right. Thank you very much. All right. In terms of the interim step that we removed, that was a perfunctory step that we didn't hear from the public on, and we didn't send it out. So it just shortens the period of what we do, but it doesn't shorten the notice period. The notice period be exactly the same. Okay, call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for all the work that's been done. And I know you're going to be continuing to speak with the neighbors and making those refinements if that's possible. All right. So thank you. I know it's been a long slog here. All right, development permit, variance permit 2985, Rutland. Again, this is part of our new process. It hadn't come back to us to be tabled and notice to be given. We came right here. I'd like a motion, please, to with respect to this.
I'll move the resolution.
Okay. Moved and seconded. And now I ask the public. Any members of the public? Is the applicant here? Those are the applicants. Anyone else wish to address us? All right. We do have a letter, and I don't know if the applicants have seen the letter. Okay. Okay. In the old days, we'd open up our agenda and tear it out of our agenda and hand it to you, but that's not possible. We're all on iPads. And it wasn't, I think there were more questions and opposition, I think, the way I read it, that do with some trees and things. So are there any questions for the applicants? Yes, please, Councillor Braithwaite, or staff.
Actually, I was just concerned with from the letter in regards to the tree that they're talking about taking out. There was no arborist report in the package, I noticed, Mr. Thomason. So did you... could you maybe talk about the tree that's being taken out?
Well, it's identified on the plans to be removed, but the arborist hasn't confirmed that is going to be approved. There was some discussion about it at the advisory planning, or at the advisory design panel, regarding the variance and having that large pine tree removed. And at that time, I believe the applicant put forward that they would try and work with saving the tree. I think the neighbor had concerns that it was a privacy tree, and they did have concerns about its removal. And there may be a possibility of special construction consideration for the garage in terms of a grade beam or possibly pads for the rear portion of the garage, which is primarily a storage area.
And
there could be some possibilities with the building permit application that we could look at those.
So if I can just comment on that, that would be, I think, really preferable in my view to be able to save that tree. So if it is possible, that would be great. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, okay, yes, go ahead. Questions of staff or the applicant?
I apologize.
Please.
Question for
Councillor
staff.
Zelko.
Thank you very much. With respect to the location of this lot, this is a question for staff. Do you have any idea whether this building will be visible, for example, from the cenotaph location? I'm just, with respect to Google Earth, trying to figure out sight lines and those sorts of things. Just, I noticed that, for example, a few years ago, another house was built that I think a lot of people were surprised was quite visible during the Remembrance Day ceremony, and I just was wondering whether this one would be visible as well or not.
Well, this one is on Rutland Road, close to Beach Drive, so I don't think it's going to be visible from the cenotaph. It's several blocks away.
Okay, thank you very much. No other questions? All right, thank you very much. I'm not sure, does the applicant wish to comment on that letter, or? I know you just read it. I know it's putting a lot of pressure on you. You don't have to. Don't feel the pressure. It's fine. All right. Okay, you're going to have to, if you wouldn't mind just coming to the microphone, then we'll need your name. And we know your address because you're at 2985 Rutland. Yep.
So I'm Bruce Pegler. Hi. The tree, yeah, it's our goal to save the tree as well. That was Mackenzie and Talbot, who are the arborists who proposed, and they said there might be extensive root damage when we do our foundation. So it's our goal to save it, but they're unsure what it'll look like in the end, just to be prepared for what might happen.
Okay. But you're prepared to make the effort.
Absolutely.
Yep. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. All
right. Discussion? Seeing none, call a question. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Thank you very much, and all the best with that. 3450 Upper Terrace. Any applicant here? Any neighbor here? Anybody here? You are representing. okay? And so like an agent, kind of. Okay, thank you. Now, let's see if there's any questions, either staff.
I'll move the resolution.
Okay, all right, we should have done that first. I was thrown off the game there. Now, questions of staff or, no? Discussion? No? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed, thank you very much. Thank you, how was that? Well, it's an hour and 2 hours and 9 minutes, but still. All right, thank you very much. We're now on a resolution where we had notice last time, and Councillor Zelka, do you wish to move the resolution?
I do, Chair. Thank you very much. I wish to move the motion. Be it resolved that staff prepare the necessary documentation and notice to amend our procedures bylaw, as indicated here, essentially as indicated in the wording, to increase notice from 24 hours in general to 72 hours. And the exact wording is in the notice of motion.
Okay, thank you very much. Right, is there a seconder? Okay, so it's on the floor. All right. One of the things we don't have with this, if council is intent on kind of thinking along these lines, is the impact it might have on staff or people who submit plans, and if we can call them generally the customers, residents, in terms of putting their materials forward to staff. What impact would that have? How would that be managed, and the like? So if there is an interest in council to moving forward on something like this, it may be worth our while to do that. I know one councillor has spoken to me about, well, actually he's spoken to both the missing councillors about this, and they have some views on this, and they might want to express some of the views on there. But on the other hand, if there's no interest in going down this road, then we needn't ask for that staff report. So that's a thought that I have. In terms of how we proceed on this, if we want to. Okay? Yes, go ahead, please. Did you want to speak to the motion, and then we can use that as my opening remarks here, or something that we can consider?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would like to speak to the motion. I had anticipated some concerns around staffing. I mean, we definitely don't want to overburden staff or provide additional work necessarily than what's being done today. So the last whereas motion, if the wording, I'll just read the last whereas motion with respect to the burden of staff. Nothing is to prevent council or staff from making last-minute changes or additions to the agenda as per normal district process and procedures. For example, today, when we, this afternoon, a notice came through from staff indicating that we needed to update our agendas because there were some new correspondence, there were some new reports, there were corrected reports that had to happen with respect to spelling mistakes. I don't expect anything like that to change. I expect that to continue. So basically trying to work with staff with respect to the processes that they're doing today, but at the same time satisfy some of the requests that have been coming forward, at least that I can find in writing all the way back to 2012 from the original community engagement report, which was asking for a 1 or 2 days additional notice for the agenda to come forward. So I am sensitive to the burden on staff, but I'm also sensitive to making sure that the staff knows, or sorry, the public knows exactly what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on that point of the whereas, it was drawn to my attention by the chair of that committee at the time that this was not a recommendation of the working group. It had been discussed, and it may have been a suggestion by someone. But in terms of the working group's recommendations that came forward, my understanding, as it was explained to me by the chair, it wasn't a recommendation. So I think in passing, they discussed it, but it didn't end up in the list of things what we should be doing. So and I think there's an important distinction in that.
Thank you. I agree with that distinction, and I believe the whereas in the wording says suggestion.
Yep.
It was important enough to make it into the report, and that's how I found out about it. I was not part of that committee. I'm part of an updating committee that's trying to update that report at some point.
But it was part of the discussion, which wasn't acted on. So we just need to clarify that. Councillor Braithwaite, please.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think that if you do read the entire report, that first whereas is taken out of context, and so I can't support this. I think that what we have right now works well for staff. I think to ask staff to get out of a meeting at 10 o'clock tonight, have their meeting tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, which I believe that's when staff has their meeting, to discuss what happened in council tonight, and then have a turnaround time of Wednesday, is that correct? To have an agenda put together for the next meeting, or the start of an agenda put together, with then a deadline of Wednesday for new items, Friday for any additional items that might, or changes that might come across their table. I don't know when you would expect them to be able to have an agenda ready. I mean, I think that it really, they do a pretty fast turnaround time, and I'm comfortable getting the agenda on the Friday and having the weekend to read it. And if I'm comfortable as a sitting councillor, I would imagine that people who are residents of Oak Bay would have the same 3 days as I do, and they should feel comfortable with that as well. So unfortunately, I cannot support your motion.
Anyone else wish to speak to who haven't spoken already? Okay. Second time speaker, go ahead, Councillor Zelka.
Thank you, Chair. I have noticed that maybe differently from when you were last on council, that there are more and more meetings, council meetings, committee of the whole meetings, special committee of the whole meetings that do not occur on Mondays. So the way the current procedures bylaw reads, it's simply 24 hours notice.
If I can answer
that. And that's kind of what I was getting at with respect to making sure that there was always a minimum of 3 days. You'll notice that in this motion, it doesn't refer to business days. It refers to simply 72 hours. Whether that's a weekend day or a business day, I've left that out of the original, how I anticipated the original wording, to make sure that there's always a minimum of 3 days. So regardless of when the meetings are. Thank you.
I think that...
Councillor Braithwaite.
Thank you. When I was on council before, we actually had 4 meetings a month, not 3 meetings a month. So we met every single Monday, unless there was 5 Mondays a month. But I think that just to answer, I also will say that there's never going to be a perfect balance between adequate notice and staff preparation time. So the current model that we have seems to strike a balance, and I think that works well with the 3 days or the 72 hours notice. So.
Okay, go ahead, Councillor Ney, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On this one, I agree with Councillor Braithwaite that when we get the package on the Friday, to have the weekend to prepare for a Monday meeting is enough. I find it enough. And so I agree with you that I imagine that's enough for citizens. The issue for me does come up around the Friday meeting. That is tight, and so then I suppose what happens is it shows up on sometime, well, the day before, and then there's a very quick turnaround. And those meetings aren't regular; they're add-ons, and I'm kind of wondering whether there's a way to address this so that on those Friday meetings, there's just a little bit more leeway, so that a little bit more space to review the package, both for council and for, I know there was one meeting, and I think there was quite a big document there, and that was a lot to get through in that period of time. So through your chair to staff, I'm just wondering, if they may comment on that. And the other question I had, what do other communities do? Is there are there protocols around this?
And you can also add what the community charter, et cetera, says. Thank you.
This is, so I'll take a little bit of a stab. I think most communities would get their agendas out on a Thursday or Friday for a Monday meeting. That's the attempt. You'd see in some regional districts there's a little bit of a longer time. And to be honest, that's largely a product of the structure of the regional districts. So you would see at times up to a week in advance they would have their agendas. Sorry, Your Worship, I forgot what the other question was.
Councillor Nate, the add-on I would say was how does it mesh in with the community charter
There's
or
two
other
things, yes. So
provincial regulation?
Yeah, so the charter stipulates that a couple of things. First, the mayor may call a council meeting, so we'd have to work that in if we were going to go something with that. 2 members of council within certain time periods may request that the mayor call a meeting. So there are some charter issues perhaps that we need to look at. Sorry, Councillor Ney, what was yours?
Okay. No, I'm just wondering regarding the Friday meetings.
Oh,
what? Yeah.
So there would be a couple options for council. You could say we don't want any more Friday meetings. We attempt on those. We hope to get those agendas out on a Monday for a Friday, and we haven't always been successful doing that. But that's our goal. Most of those Friday meetings that we've had, and there's only been, I think, 2 or 3, are for issues that we often rely on outside agencies and consultants to get us their information. And a couple of experiences we've had, that information has not arrived in the time that we would have liked. But our goal is to get that to you on the Monday.
Okay. Follow-up? Go ahead, Councillor Ney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So my issue was, so the current bylaw reads 24 hours. So for the Friday meeting, like say we have a meeting at 9 in the morning, it would be required to have the stuff for the Thursday morning, correct? So then we have that full day. So I guess what I was wondering, so is that, so correct me if you clarify how that works.
So, Your Worship, I can't recall a time where we've only given you the agenda 1 day in advance. 2 or 3, I think, is the minimum that we've provided you. But our goal is to get that to you on the Monday. I think we have gotten you information for it might have been the last one on a Tuesday, but our goal is always the Monday.
Thank you. Go ahead, Councillor Kirby, please.
I would just echo the comments of Councillor Braithwaite and Ney that I find, even with a very busy schedule, adequate time to read my agenda, and we are expected to read every piece of correspondence and examine plans and do site visits, and there's more to our analysis than I would suggest most members of the public. I would assume that they would be interested in 1, perhaps 2 items on an agenda. And so I think that being given 24 hours in the rare instances when that does happen, I think 24 hours is adequate when dealing with a single issue, which is generally what happens on those Friday meetings. It's not an issue of a larger consequence. So I think we are striking out the best balance we can between the resources we provide staff. If we were to add to the staff, that would add to the tax burden, and I'm not sure that that is the service level that is expected from our taxpayers. I think everybody's quite satisfied, certainly given the results of the survey that would indicate so. So I can't support the motion.
Thank you. everyone else spoken. I'm just going, you want to add the third time? Go ahead.
If
And
I
then I'll
may.
speak.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Then we'll call a question.
Appreciate that. So what I'm hearing staff say, and I'd like to confirm this through the chair, of course, is that effectively for the meetings that are not on the Mondays, you're already providing a minimum of 72 hours notice. Is that what I heard you say? Or attempting to, at least?
That is our goal, yes.
That is your goal. Thank you. Another question for staff. I wanted to clarify something that I heard Councillor Kirby allude to, which was that are there things, other than potentially an upland site visit, are there things that are sent to councillors that the public don't see until 24 hours or until the procedures bylaw says the public sees something? Because I'm under the impression, and correct me if I'm wrong, please, through chair to staff, that councillors and mayor generally see reports and agendas and those sort of things when the public sees it. We both see it at the same time. Now, if it's different, please help me understand, other than, for example, upland site visits.
Your Worship, if you could give an example, that would be great. But when we post the agenda on our website, we send a note out informing council that it's now posted on the website and it's available to the public at the exact same time.
Thank you. That was my understanding as well. So I didn't understand what I thought I heard a colleague refer to with respect to how somehow we would get reports that are ahead of time from the public, but we basically get all the reports at the same time. Okay, I wasn't sure, so that's why I was clarifying with staff that the material that we get is the same material that the public gets at approximately the same time, or the same timeline. Thank you.
There was nodding, yes.
You're nodding.
I'm sorry, Your Worship. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. No further questions. Thank you
very much. I think underlying Councillor Zelka's concern, I think it's a fair one in that everyone have time to properly prepare, and that includes the members of the public. However, the practical reality of it is, when there's something, putting aside Friday meetings for a minute, when there's something very significant, it doesn't come upon us 72 hours in advance. It comes upon us 7 or 8 months in advance. And you just look at the amount of materials, for instance, we have and we've been looking at on 1701 Beach Drive. This isn't something new. Most of the materials we have before us tonight, we got last month, the month before, 6 months ago, 12 months ago. So this is nothing new to us or the public. It's been in the public realm. The occasional thing that comes upon us quickly are things like, can we have Apple Day on the Avenue? So again, those aren't big issues of significance that I don't think anyone is saying we need more time in that. So I think as a practical matter, there is, because of the way we're scheduled in terms of council, and it goes to committee of the whole, comes back to council, there's lots of lead time, sometimes years. I don't know how long was at the hotel was 4 years. The Carlton House, I think, was 2 or 3 years. So, and in fact, we often get complaints of not moving fast enough. I think GNS felt that for a while. They wanted it to move quicker, and as it turns out, it took 1.5 years by the sounds of it. So I think on all of the big issues, we have plenty of notice and plenty of time to prepare. Now, the Friday meetings are perhaps a little special. I think the point that was made by Councillor Braithwaite's a good one, that we used to have 4 meetings a month on Monday, and Monday. What we agreed to do was just go down to 3, which means that we need the occasional extra meeting. And the way our schedules are, they tend to be on the Friday, so we can accommodate work schedules. So I think with the assurance of our staff, and it's, we have usually 72, if not more time. And some of those occasions, for instance, the priority session, most of those materials had been in front of us every 6 months, quarterly. So none of those were a surprise, and to us, nor to the public, because they were in the public realm for lots and lots of times. I think maybe the last little, what are we going to do and how are we going to do it, from the consultant was that perhaps maybe only 48 hours before or whatever it was. Again, that was a procedural thing. That wasn't a substantive thing. So I think by and large, we have plenty of notice, and to prepare as council, I feel quite comfortable, although I have a lot of experience, I suppose, compared to the new people like yourself and Councillor Croft. But the public also has the opportunity to, and if any members of council, when it comes to us, has a concern that there's not preparation, then we can table it. So, which we've done on a number of occasions over the years, saying, you know, there's this piece of information missing, or I need to prepare more. So I think there are other ways to get at your concern, Councillor Zelka. One way is the assurances from staff that they're doing their best to get it out on the Monday before the Friday, and then the ability to defer. That's what I have to say about that. I'm going to call a question. All in one more point? Okay, go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Just in a general response to what I heard you refer to. Tonight's meeting, I felt that some members of the public hadn't received enough notice regarding the a previous agenda item, and proposed that it be tabled for 2 weeks, and unfortunately that failed. So I appreciate the fact that we have that tool available, but it doesn't always go through. The intent of this motion is not for us. I feel, as I have to agree with Councillor Braithwaite, I feel I have enough time when the reports come forward. My concern is the public. My concern got heightened with respect to the red tape and efficiency, red tape reduction and efficiencies report that came forward last September. And as we're moving things forward, we have a very ambitious OCP. We know that there is some concern about the number of changes coming forward. I just wanted to make sure that we have staff, not just staff, not just councillors, but we have the public on board. So this was my hope to, of the things we take away with respect to the number of meetings, to also give back some aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm not sure tonight's issue with the speaker who wanted to put things off was a good example, because it may have been had there been a last minute change. In other words, if she'd been shown plan 6 months ago and 3 months ago, and then tonight she comes and there are changes to them, I would fully have supported a deferral. But we clearly heard that the plans have not changed in, I think he said, a year and a half. The ones that were shown were the same as the ones we're looking at now. So if a year and a half isn't enough time, then 2 weeks is not going to make a difference. So I don't think that's a good illustration. There will be times when there's a last minute changes, and I think those are the times we should all look for, and I think we'd all be on board with saying, no, there's been some changes here, the public's not fully informed. We need to give them a chance. And I think, in fact, there's a case out of the Vancouver and a BC Court of Appeal, I think, where they ensure that the information the public has should be relatively full and complete before a decision. And tonight we heard it had been full and complete for 12 to 18 months. So, all right, I'm going to call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Okay. Everyone's opposed but Councillor Zelka. Sorry, that would be easy just to name everyone else. Okay, thank you very much. So, I think we've run out of, no, we haven't run out of things to do. Sorry, I forgot about those bylaws. I'll pull it out here. Okay, and so we have the bylaw memo from our Deputy Director of Corporate Services, and we have 2 sets of bylaws. The first relates to the standing policy that was developed in 1997, and has been acted on every year since, that salaries go up or down as the consumer price index goes up or down. It's only gone down once or twice, and we did reduce our salaries in those years.
I will move bylaw 4673, Mayor and Councilors Annual Indemnity Bylaw 2017.
Second.
Or for first reading, sorry.
Okay, first reading. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed.
Move second reading of bylaw number 4673.
Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor? Opposed?
Move third reading bylaw 4673.
Second.
And all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you. Now, the next one is the bylaw 4674, which is the temporary extension of the operating agreement.
Move bylaw 4674, Greater Victoria Public Library Operating Agreement Authorization Bylaw 2016 for
Second.
first reading.
Second. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Move second reading bylaw 4674.
Second.
Okay, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you.
Move third reading bylaw 4674.
Second.
Okay. All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much.
Move adjournment.
Second.
Now, any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? None opposed. Thank you very much.